Okay, let's just jump right in. There's this sort of low hum of anxiety out there right now, isn't there?
Definitely.
This feeling that something really fundamental about work is shifting, especially in the white-collar world.
Yeah, you hear that phrase, white-collar bloodbath,
Yeah,
floating around.
exactly. And there's this pervasive kind of unsettling sense that this time, well, maybe it actually is different.
That feeling is absolutely rooted in what people are seeing. I
Hmm.
mean, it's true. For the first time, machines aren't just automating, repetitive factory work.
Right.
We're seeing AI writing emails, drafting legal clauses, even like suggesting medical diagnoses, stuff that felt uniquely human just, well, yesterday, it feels like.
Right, and that shift, it's sparking this sort of quiet panic. I've heard it from people just starting out, interns, analysts, recent grads.
Yeah.
They're looking at that traditional career ladder, the one maybe their parents climbed, and they're genuinely wondering if the bottom rungs are just dissolving before they can even grab on.
It's a completely valid concern, and it's dominated a lot of the recent chatter.
Which is exactly why we wanted to do this deep dive today. We've been looking at a whole collection of insights, really digging into this
I
anxiety.
understand it better.
Yeah, exploring what history actually tells us about these kinds of tech shifts and really questioning what truly matters now, in the age of advanced AI, beyond just the tasks themselves.
Our goal here is really to unpack that fear, look at the lessons history might offer, and think about what the future of work could look like, pushing past those initial scary headlines.
And to really get why the recent panic feels so intense, we kind of have to start with a specific moment, a statement that really cut through the noise.
Ah, yeah. It was that tech CEO, wasn't it, talking to reporters.
Exactly.
And he wasn't, like, hedging his bets. It was stark.
Hmm.
He said AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs.
Could.
Well,
Soon. That's what hit me. It wasn't just some vague prediction. It felt almost like an elegy for the way things used to be.
right. For upward mobility as we knew it.
It wasn't just about numbers. It shifted that whole tech anxiety thing right into the heart of corporate America, into offices, onto Zoom calls.
And the narrative that spun out from that quote was, well, fascinating. The material we looked at really highlights how breathless some of the reporting felt.
Yeah.
Presenting AI almost like this character, both the savior and the destroyer.
Yeah.
Painting this picture of white-collar work in terminal decline, government's totally unprepared.
Mm. And the AI companies themselves sort of warning us while also building the very thing they're warning about.
Exactly, that paradox.
It definitely has that dramatic flair like a movie trailer. But if you strip away the drama, you're left with some really hard questions, right?
Absolute fundamental ones.
It's like, what's the value of work when intelligence seems like it's just everywhere, ambient?
Yeah.
What happens to gaining experience, climbing the ladder, if that first rung just vanishes?
And critically, who actually benefits? Who profits from all this disruption?
Yeah.
And look, to be clear, the fear isn't totally baseless. AI, especially this idea, agentic AI,
Which is like AI that doesn't just process stuff, but actually does stuff, builds things.
exactly, creating digital employees, as one piece put it, that's advancing incredibly fast. So you can see why a 22-year-old looking at that feels, well, a genuine dread.
Right. But as striking as that narrative is, when you look back, it feels kind of familiar. The material we read points out that this story, machines replacing us, it's a tale we've told ourselves again and again.
It is a well-rehearsed script, absolutely.
Yeah.
And crucially, it's usually an incomplete script.
How so?
Well, it oversimplifies things. It assumes businesses just automate because the tech exists, which isn't always how it works in reality.
Right. There are costs, implementation hurdles.
Exactly. And it paints workers as just passive victims, which historically they rarely are in the long run. People adapt, they find new ways.
And it misses that key point. Technology usually reshapes jobs, adds new tasks, demands new skills, rather than just swapping a person for a machine one-to-one.
That reshaping part is so important. Think about those entry-level jobs. They're not just about ticking off tasks.
No, not at all.
They're where you learn the unspoken rules, the office politics, how to handle ambiguity, how to persuade someone, the messy human stuff.
Yeah, a bot can summarize a brief perfectly, maybe, but it can't learn resilience from, like, totally bombing a client presentation.
Or figure out how to recover from a public mistake in a meeting. Growth, especially early on, happens in those awkward human moments.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a provocative thought from the material we reviewed. Maybe a lot of what AI threatens actually should be automated.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, if AI can handle the hours spent formatting a spreadsheet just so, or doing that really tedious data entry that new hires often get stuck with, then maybe that's not such a bad thing,
The riddance, maybe?
was the phrase used, yeah. Good riddance to that kind of mind-numbing work.
Okay, that totally flips the script. Instead of just a threat, it becomes an opportunity.
Exactly. An opportunity to maybe elevate entry-level work, to ask more of young professionals than just, following procedures.
It demands totally new ways of thinking about early career growth, new philosophies of work and learning, not just buying new software.
It forces you to ask, what's the point of these roles?
Right.
Is it just output? Or is it growth? Learning the ropes? Figuring out how to learn?
And history can give us some pointers there, right?
It really can.
Yeah.
Because like we said, this fear of machines making us obsolete, it's old. Really old.
You can almost picture that image from the 1930s, right? The guy selling matches on the street under a huge billboard for the robot that thinks.
Yeah, feeling totally dejected. He was just one in a long line.
So what are some other examples?
Well, the material walks us through some great ones, like the knitting frame back in 1589. Queen Elizabeth I apparently refused the inventor a patent.
Why?
She worried it would put poor women knitters out of work, which was, a valid concern.
But what actually happened?
The tech eventually spread. Yes, disruption happened. But women found new kinds of work. Clothes got cheaper. The whole textile economy actually grew, creating more jobs overall. Her fear didn't quite play out as expected.
Interesting.
Then you have the Luddites, 1811, often portrayed as just anti-technology.
Yeah, smashing machines.
But they were skilled workers, protesting mechanical looms because they felt their jobs were vanishing without any kind of social contract or alternative. They lost that battle, but the world adapted, even if it was painful.
Okay, fast forward a bit.
1960s. Warnings about the electronic brain, the early computer creating mental unemployed. 1980s. Fear of robotics wiping out factory jobs.
And then the internet, which feels closer to home, predictions it would kill off travel agents, cashiers, and newspapers.
And while it definitely disrupted those industries massively, newspapers especially felt it wasn't total annihilation across the board, was it? Travel agents still exist, specializing. Cashiers are still around, though self-checkout is huge.
So the pattern seems to be disruption, pain, yes, but also adaptation and new things emerging.
Absolutely. We consistently seem to overestimate the destruction and underestimate our own ability to reinvent, to adapt, to just find new problems to solve, new things to do.
History doesn't really do clean breaks, does it? It sort of stutters and pivots. What looks like an endpoint just becomes a new, maybe awkward starting line.
Think about the railroads in the late 1800s. Blacksmiths, stable hands, their jobs were clearly threatened.
Right, fewer horses needed.
And yes, those specific jobs declined. But many of those people became machinists on the trains, or later, auto mechanics. Or they found jobs in the huge new logistics and hospitality industries that the railroads themselves created. Their skills shifted. They didn't just vanish.
Okay, the example I find really compelling is ATMs, 1990s. The obvious prediction, bank tellers are done for.
Logically, yes. Machines handle transactions. More efficient, more convenient.
But their numbers didn't just hold steady, they actually increased for a while.
Right, because banks use the efficiency savings from ATMs to open more branches. And the teller's jobs changed.
How so?
They became less about just counting cash and more about relationship building, problem solving, handling complex stuff, maybe some basic financial advice. The human-centric tasks the machine couldn't do, building trust.
That seems like the core lesson then, doesn't it? Technology rarely replaces people, it replaces tasks.
Exactly. And when tasks change, we get the chance, or sometimes we're forced, to reimagine the people doing them.
Now, the pushback is always, okay, fine, but this time is different. AI learns, it reasons, it improves exponentially, the speed feels different.
And that's a fair point. There's some validity there.
Yeah.
The pace is incredibly fast, and the capability feels qualitatively new to many. Maybe the disruption curve is steeper this time.
Maybe. But even here, there are historical echoes, right? You mentioned Keynes.
John Maynard Keynes, yeah. Back in 1933, during the Depression, he wrote about technological unemployment.
Yeah.
Basically, unemployment because we found ways to use less labor.
And he predicted we'd all be working, 15 hours a week by now because machines would do everything.
He did. He predicted this new disease of too much leisure.
Clearly didn't happen.
No. What he kind of missed wasn't the tech's potential, but the human element. Our culture, our innate need to feel useful, to strive, create, connect. We didn't just embrace leisure. We invented new jobs, new industries, new problems to solve, new ways to feel indispensable.
So even though AI is incredibly powerful and fast, its ultimate impact isn't just about its code, it's about our choices.
Exactly. What we collectively decide to preserve, what we automate, and crucially, how we choose to reinvent ourselves and our relationship with work.
Which brings us to maybe the deepest part of this whole conversation. Beyond jobs and tasks, there's that fundamental human need.
Meaning.
Yeah, meaning. Viktor Frankl's idea that the search for meaning is maybe the deepest human drive.
Hmm.
And the material we've been digging into argues that this AI anxiety, it isn't just about the paycheck. It's about potentially losing our sense of purpose, our participation, and maybe our connection to each other.
That feels like the absolute crux of it. AI doesn't just threaten work as income. It threatens work as a source of meaning.
How so?
Because think about what's left when you automate away tasks. Often it's the collaboration, right? The camaraderie, the sometimes messy, frustrating, but also irreplaceable joy of figuring things out together.
Efficiency models don't usually value that messy part.
Not really. An AI can write a flawless memo, sure, but it can't walk into a room, read the mood, truly hold space for a difficult conversation, and help a team decide collectively what that memo means for them.
So the real danger isn't just automating tasks, it's maybe AI convincing us we don't actually need each other as much to do valuable work.
That collaboration becomes inefficient. That mentorship is too slow. That you don't need a career ladder, just the right prompt.
Yeah.
And the material strongly suggests that's a future we have to actively resist designing.
There's also that weird irony around access, isn't there? AI tools promise this amazing universal capability.
But then the rollout is often gated. Expensive APIs, those digital doorways to use the AI premium subscriptions, closed platforms.
Right, so it risks becoming another tool for the haves, widening the gap.
If it just becomes a tool for a select few to get ahead and exclude others, then yeah, we've turned something potentially amazing into just another form of private power. The cost isn't just money, it's cultural, it's about potential.
So a more just, more meaningful future with AI requires broad access, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Not just to the tools, but to the training, the understanding to use them well, real participation in shaping how it gets used.
Imagine what future generations could do if AI was truly like a co-pilot for everyone. A bridge, not a barrier.
But that requires deliberate choices, collective decisions about the future we want to build with this technology, and it really pushes us to rethink work itself.
Yes. Moving beyond seeing work as just production, cranking out reports or widgets, and seeing it more as practice.
Practice.
Yeah, like a space where we grow, we develop, often through interacting with other people, like those creatures in nature that build elaborate things, not just for pure function, but because it's part of their being. Work could be more than just efficient output.
So that means designing roles differently.
Maybe designing roles around human capabilities, prioritizing learning, curiosity, letting people stretch, even if some narrow AI metric says it's inefficient.
Let AI handle optimizing the tasks. Let humans own the aspiration, the creativity, the messy relationships that actually make work meaningful.
Exactly. And the material had some concrete ideas for how to do that, right?
Yeah, things like embedding mentorship into workflows, really rewarding collaboration, creating actual on-ramps for new talent instead of automating them away.
And holding on to those things, AI just can't do humor, empathy, hesitation, wonder, building trust.
Because really, this whole conversation about saving jobs, it's not truly about clinging to specific tasks, is it?
No, it feels deeper.
It's about preserving that fundamental human right to strive, to be part of something, to learn, contribute, mess up, and still get a chance to climb back up.
So the real question isn't if AI will change work, it already is.
Every day.
The question is how we choose to respond. Do we build a future that narrows access and automates away meaning?
Or do we design one that honors that deep human need to strive to matter and, crucially, to grow through each other?
The tools are incredibly powerful. That's not really in doubt.
No, the capability is astounding. What's still up in the air and what's entirely in our hands is our collective wisdom and how we use them.
And maybe in actually choosing to build and share that wisdom together, we find the future wasn't about replacing us at all.
But maybe about reminding us of what only we, together, can really be.
Wow. That feels like the heart of it. So in a world where AI can handle pure efficiency, what are you, listening right now, going to prioritize? Just the output, or that human connection, the learning, the striving, the collective wisdom? Definitely something to think about.
Indeed. And if you are interested in digging into these ideas more, The link to the source material we've been discussing is right there in the description for this deep dive.